Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to TrepTalks. This is the show where I interview successful e-commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Jared Madsen to the show. Jared is the founder of Madsen Cycles. Madsen Cycles creates cargo bicycles for the whole family. A Madsen bike makes it easy for parents to get their children outside to create unforgettable and happy memories together. And today I'm going to ask Jared a few questions about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the strategies and tactics that he has used to start and grow his business. So Jared, thank you so much for joining me today at Trip Talks. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So very interesting business. So how do you describe your product? So, we were just discussing, they're most commonly known as cargo bicycles, but of course, it seems like there's an e-bike component to them as well. So can you talk a little bit about your
there is an e-bike component to them, and I would describe it as a cargo bike. But most people that I run up against, they don't quite know what that is. But our bike is unique that it can carry a big load. It has a big bucket on the back that it comes stocked with 4 seats in the back for kids, and that's our primary customer is moms and dads with kids. But we also sell it into the delivery and warehouses for running errands and stuff. But it's primarily moms and dads with kids.
When I see this item, it almost reminds me of what is called a rickshaw in like Asian countries. They're commonly on the roads, and they're common mode of transportation. So I'm very interested to hear a little bit about the story. When did you start this business, and what kind of really what were you doing before, and what kind of really gave you the idea for this kind of a product?
Yeah, so it started in 2007. So I think we're on our 14th year or 15th year right now. And I've been in the bike industry for years. I started in a Schwinn bike shop when I was 15 years old. And I've been in bicycles and scooters and motorcycles. And I've also been in manufacturing of gumball machines and vending machines, just anything mechanical and with an engineering twist on it. That's where I've always been. And luckily I worked for a few of those bicycle companies that we did manufacturing overseas, and so at a young age I was sent over there to work with some of the engineers there. So it really opened my eyes to what could happen. And then fast forward, I'm married with, we just are barely starting a family, my wife and I, and it was the first trip we ever took when we left our kids at home, and we went to the Netherlands. I used to live in the Netherlands, and my family's all from Denmark. My dad immigrated to the US when he was a teenager. But so we were back in the Netherlands, and we just saw all these cargo bikes, which were commonplace, but they were usually only used by the butcher and the baker. But since that time period that I hadn't been there, my wife and I showed up and just saw that whole market had been taken over by moms delivering their kids to school or taking trips to the grocery store. The bicycle is more common than the car in the Netherlands, but just seeing that it being used in this whole new way with families and kids, and we had our brand new kids at home. So when I got home, I had a little shop, and I built one that was an exact copy of what they were using. Their buckets out in the front, which works really great in the Netherlands on the flat, perfectly smooth bike paths, and I just couldn't leave it alone. I kept making different prototypes and kind of came up with what we have now, and then started to think that maybe it should be a business.
Awesome. And I mean, it's such an interesting point that you brought up, and I didn't know that this about Netherlands, because right now I'm actually following a YouTube creator. She goes by the name of Itchy Boots, and she drives these motor bicycles, and she is going all over the world on this bike like years, and she's going from place to place, and it's such an interesting thing. And she's from Netherlands, and so it's when you shared that, it makes sense now that seems like a culture in that part of the world.
Yeah, it definitely is a mainstream. And then especially 14 years ago, it was not mainstream in the US. So when we launched, we were one of 2 companies in the whole country that had a product like it. So, and there's been a lot of popularity since. So there was a lot of really great timing for us to be one of the leaders in at least here in the US.
So given that you are coming from like a cycling industry, why not consider a different kind of a product? I mean, Schwinn is big into exercise bikes and so forth. Why this kind of a product? I mean, to me, did you do like any sort of market validation and find that there would be a market in the US for these kind of products?
No, and in fact, the few people that I talked with, some mentors, did not think it was a good idea. So, and I've been in that bike industry. I went and talked to a few shop owners and a few people since I've been in that industry for so long, and asked them what they thought after I'd made some prototypes and showed them either the bike or some photos, and everyone wasn't excited about it. I remember the shop that exact Schwinn shop that I worked at, I went back to my old boss, and he says, Jared, no one has ever walked in my shop and asked for anything like this. So I don't think I would ever buy a bike from you until someone asks for it. I'm not interested. I don't think it's a good idea. And it really, if anything, it drove me to want to prove them wrong. So it was more of a passion that drove this product. And I wanted something in the bike industry. I love bicycles. I love the whole industry. I love everything. Not everything about it, but I just really enjoy that bike, the simplicity of it, the pureness of it, and living up in Europe and seeing how it's used there, and then not seeing how it's used in the US. But I knew I didn't want a bike that was mainstream either, because there's 100 people with deeper pockets selling mountain bikes and road bikes and touring bikes, and it would just be one of another. So as soon as I saw those and started thinking of it, the more I thought personally, like, oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. I will be the first in the US. I passionately felt like it was going to catch on, just because we used it all the time. We loved it. People asked us about it. And I also felt like in the Netherlands, nobody says they're a cyclist, even though they ride a bike every single day. They would never say they're a cyclist. They think those are the guys with the stretchy pants and a helmet. And that's always been my idea too, is that bike shops and typical cyclists aren't necessarily our customers. It's moms and dads that want to just still go on bike rides, and they've got little kids, and they see the potential and that it's fun and they could get out. So that's no research, just a passion, I think, that drove it more than anything. And wanting to prove those guys wrong. Years later, that same boss from that Schwinn shop he didn't, but his manager contacted us and tried to buy some bikes. And at that point, we were going directly to the consumer, so I wasn't open to any shops. But it was kind of fun to get that call.
Wow, very, very interesting. So what kind of investment did it take for you to kind of bring this idea to market? I mean, did you kind of start off with a prototype and try to sell it first, and then you went into mass kind of market? What was it like to kind of I mean, did you target, because these bikes were already being, I mean, I'm sure there were manufacturers who were creating it if it was already in Netherlands. Did you directly go to those manufacturers and say, I just want to bring them to the US? Can you share a little bit about that beginning journey?
Because the design that we came up with was completely unique. There still is nothing like it, even in the Netherlands, or there's some things closer to it in the US, but especially back then, there was nothing like it. And it was the design that we wanted. So I wasn't going to help to go to another manufacturer. And because of my experience working with bike manufacturers already in frame factories, it was easy to settle on who we wanted to work with. And I just knew how the industry works. We get this idea that they're sharing each other's plans and that you can just knock something off, but that's really not how it works. I mean, you can knock somebody off, but I didn't want to. I wanted my own unique bike. So I ended up working with a really great frame factory in Taiwan. We actually started in China and had some terrible experiences and lost a lot of money. And I knew it because I've done it for other companies and seen them do the same thing. But I was so tempted by that lower price tag coming out of China but we couldn't maintain quality. We just had so many headaches. And so that was our first 2 containers. And then our next production run, I moved everything over to Taiwan, or started over, I should say, in Taiwan with factories that I knew were going to work for us and that we could control quality. And my name's on the bike, and I want a bike that's going to last and last and last, and be proud that my name's on there. So that's always been really important for us.
And was the entire investment completely out of your pocket, or did you kind of go about finding investors?
Yeah, no, it was in the beginning. It was once we got product and once we started selling to dealers, we took out a line of credit. I looked around and talked to our banker, and nobody wanted to give us any line of credit in the beginning when we really needed it. But I did have a rental property that I had worked really hard to pay it down and build up a lot of equity in there. So we pulled a lot of equity out of that rental, and that's what I've done besides the bicycles is construction. My dad's a contractor, and so in the past I've bought a lot of homes and either flipped them or tried to rent them out. And so we had some cash. There was the biggest investment for us, and the thing that made us realize that we're actually going through with this was getting the molds made for that bucket, because everything else it's still just a bicycle. It's a long bicycle, but it's just a bike. But that bucket's what really sets it apart, and it was a huge investment for us back then. It's still a big investment to get something that large, plastic molded. So that was when I put the money down for that mold, that really put everything in reality for me that, oh my gosh, we're really going to do this. This better work out, because that was a lot of money for us.
It is. I mean, it is a risk. Like if you think about it, where, it's a new idea, you're kind of coming up with a newer design product, and, and you're trying to launch it in a new market where you're not, you have a hunch that it may work, but you don't really know.
Right.
So it is
just
definitely.
Yeah. My wife was even a little leery, a little worried that I was spending the money. She wasn't involved in the business till we were in business for, I think, like 7 years. But yeah, she was worried that I was taking our savings and dumping it into something that may not work out, but it worked out. So it could have. You asked the question, like, did we pre-sell them from a prototype? I had filed for some patents. We have a design patent and some provisionals, one actually application patent on our kickstand, because it's totally unique. There's no kickstand like it. But I was waiting for these provisionals to be filed, because legally we can't disclose and keep our patents strong until the provisionals were filed. So we had bikes on our way coming from China at that time, and I had signed up for a big bike show, the Inner Bike Show, which was a dealers only show, and I wasn't able to advertise. I wasn't able to send anything out there or anything. So we got those provisionals done literally the week before and showed up to this big convention, set up our little 10x10 booth, and still wondering, is this even going to work? Was this a good idea? I actually sold one bike, and I'm forgetting a lot of these stories, but all the bikes, I had 200 show up in one container first, and we got them out, and I started building them and realized that the brake mount on the fork was welded on upside down. And I couldn't sell these bikes. So we quickly worked with the fork manufacturer. They're air freighting new forks. I'm going to have to swap them all out. And I had a bike shop mechanic that found us and really wanted to buy one of our bikes, but I didn't want to. And this may have been after that Inner Bike Show. I'm sorry, I can't remember, but it must have been because we had disclosed. But I wasn't selling any bikes because I couldn't ship them with this fork, that problem. But since he was a bike mechanic and he was local, I said, I'll sell you. They still worked. It just wasn't perfect. It wasn't the way it should be. It still worked. And I said, since you're a bike mechanic, I'll sell you one. And then as soon as I get the forks, I can give you the forks and you can put them in there.
Hmm.
And he took it and they had it for about 2 weeks and they actually returned it. So the first bike I ever sold was returned. And their feedback was that it's just way too hard to ride. His wife couldn't ride it. It was super unstable. It wanted to tip over as soon as they put the kids in there. And of course I took, gave him his money back, but it wiped me out. I think it took years to recover from that. It was our first and only return for years and years and years. It's not an easy product to return, but it's also, that was just an anomaly. It wasn't at all the case. I think maybe money was tight. Something else was going on. They wanted to return that bike, but it took me out. And here I had 200 bikes sitting in my warehouse. I haven't shipped out any of them. And I'm worried, did I just make a huge mistake? If this one mom bike mechanic, experienced cyclist, if he can't ride this, what are we going to do? But luckily it worked out. We were at that bike show that first day. Almost nobody came into our booth. And here we hadn't done any pre-advertising. We were off in the corner and really starting to worry. And well, not starting. We've been worried for a long time, but wishing that we had people coming in and showing an interest, and maybe unrealistically just to think we could show up at a trade show and take off. But the very next day we went to our booth and there was actually a line of people wanting to come into our booth. And we're like, what is going on? Yesterday we didn't talk to anyone and we just started talking to all these people. And finally someone said, hey, congratulations getting put into the Show Daily, which is a magazine that's published every day of the show. And somebody that had come in that first day talked to one of us, who was my dad, that was down there, my dad and I, which he's awesome. He's got this thick Danish accent and he's just this typical Dane and people like him. So I wanted him there. And so I don't know who he talked to, but they brought up this article, and that's really what launched us, was that article. We had a big shop that up in Oregon that they had multiple shops. So they had like 3 or 4 shops, and they placed an order that day for 30 bikes, which was huge. We had a minimum order of like 3 bikes to a dealer, and he just just blind said, yeah, I'll take 30 of them, it was a great market up there. And they had the shops and they had the know-how. They knew they could move them. And that's where we started.
Wow, that's so interesting. So right now, is your model direct to consumer, or is it more to cycle
It
dealerships?
is. Yeah, it's so the first few years, and I think it was really key for us to have those dealers. So we set up dealers in almost every state, just small mom and pop shops, really small bike shops that were ordering 3, our minimum. And if they talked to me, I'd even sell them 1. And what was starting to happen though is that they would have one on display, and then when a customer wanted one, they would order it from us and then put it together for them. And which was kind of frustrating. We wanted them to have them on hand, so they could just buy it and no more have that impulse buy. And we had been working since the second year. We've been working with REI, which is a really large retailer in the US.
Yep.
And it took about a year to get signed up on their system and to qualify to be a seller to REI, and just this whole new portal that they had, all of these checks we had to go through. And we finally got it, and we were so excited. And it didn't turn out very well. They immediately told us that they didn't want to put their bikes in the store because they're too big. Their margins per square foot don't work with that big giant bike, and they wanted to sell them online and then allow the customer to pick them up at the REI, and we would drop ship them directly to the REI. And we were already a little frustrated that bike shops weren't selling them. Customers were calling us and asking us all the questions, and then going to the bike shop, and the bike shop was ordering them. And when REI said they were only going to sell online, we decided to drop REI, and we at the same time decided to drop all of our dealers and only go direct to consumer. We had worked out a lot of things with shipping direct to consumer. We've already been doing it in areas that didn't have a shop, but with REI, we had to sell 3 bikes to make the same margins as selling 1 direct to the customer. And in the same token, we had to have 3 times as many bikes then, which meant our warehouse needed to be 3 times bigger. which meant our inventory had to be 3 times bigger, which meant that was just a lot of money out, that we had to keep inventory in. So after looking at it that way, the direct to consumer, and we thought we would see a decrease, which we were okay with, but we just continued to grow. This was also back when like Instagram and Facebook was just so easy to market on there, so easy to sell. Everyone that followed us saw our feeds every day. I mean, there was this magical time, this window before that all went away, and that's really what launched. We first started with blogs. We had a really big blogger that wanted one of our bikes, entered a contest. It was a girl, her name was Nini, the Nini's Dialogue. She was really popular. She crashed in a plane, was burned, and was in a coma for like 8 months and had all these followers. And she entered this contest to win a bike, and she just made a comment like, "Oh, I would love to buy this bike." And we didn't know anything about this, but I had 2 anonymous customers call me and buy her a bike, and she was local. So I decided, man, I'm going to deliver these and then I went online, of course, and read all of her blog and was like, wow, this lady's really great. And how cool that she wants one of our bikes. So I delivered them personally and met her, and she had just come out of her coma, covered in neoprene skin, and this amazing story of her survival and her husband, both in this plane crash. And they used the bike all the time. We kind of became friends. And so they used it more than just, and this was before anyone charged for a post, if we were, and I think that's also why people took the credibility from influencers more back then, because it wasn't the same. If I gave someone a great deal on a bike, they would just post. There was no negotiation about how much and how many times and what kind of compensation we need to give them. And so she was huge for us to go direct to consumer. And then we realized when we're direct to consumer, we have that relationship with the customer and not with the bike shop, which is awesome, because our product, it just by itself, it builds this community. So we have lots of little pockets of communities that we stay in contact with. There's contests all the time of decorating your bike and going on group rides, and we have people in different areas that have taken this responsibility on just because they're a cyclist. It's a way more I don't know what the right guerrilla marketing maybe,
Guerrilla
I don't know
marketing,
what to call it, but instead of these large influencers, they're just much smaller, and it's awesome because they still are like they used to be. They're just genuinely wanting to use the bike and loving it. And so having that community, having that direct connection with the community is great. And when someone buys a bike, if it shows up and has a little scratch on it or something, of course nobody wants a scratch on their bike, but they wanted the product in the first place. They call, talk to me. I'm really sorry about that. What can we do to make it better? It's just so easy. Where the bike shop was, they just couldn't sell it as a brand new bike. They just wanted money back. That was it. They just wanted to sell the bike to make money. It wasn't at all about this love of our product, or it's just night and day working with the customer and working with the bike shops. And so I'm really glad we did that, and it's been great moving forward. And we toy every once in a while when a large retailer will contact us, but it's just hard to give up what we've built with the community.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely an appeal to this kind of a product, especially in the time where we are living. Everybody wants to be in front of computers and things like that. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't just want their kids to be sitting in front of their computer. They want to spend more time with their kids. And, this kind of a product really makes it easy for people to get out in nature, get out and, in the evening and kind of have fun and spend some time together. The communities that you've talked about, like what are you like are these really parents who are buying it, or are there like other kind of more nature enthusiasts and people like that who are
we say we have a lot of and the whole bike industry, we call them garage bikes. They're bikes that are sold and they sit in somebody's garage. They get ridden once or twice a year and then they sit in the garage. So we sell a lot of garage bikes, but then we have these customers that will give up a car, that are going car free, that are maybe they have one car, they're young, with newly married, trying to make life work and trying to save up money, and they'll have one car. And those are the customers that really get involved in our community. We love anyone that will buy a bike, of course, and we sell a lot of bikes to someone that really wants a photo opportunity. I think they're buying them, they're getting those really cool photos that you can get with your kids going on an adventure, but then they may just sit in the garage. But we'll sell them to anyone, of course. But it's those customers that really get into it or really need it. But that probably is a small percentage of that's the smaller quarter or whatever. I don't know direct numbers, but that's the community we love to work with. And that's who interacts with us also.
Is pricing, I mean, how did you come with your pricing? Because from a pricing perspective, like, would this be considered more of a premium product? I mean, I'm assuming not everybody can afford I mean, your pricing is ranging from like $2,600 to about $5,000.
Yeah.
I'm assuming $5,000 bikes are more of the e-bikes, and then the one on the 2,600, that's more of a manual bike. Can you talk a little bit about your pricing? How did you price these products? And is that kind of I mean, is that like only a certain person who has extra money in their pocket would be kind of investing in this kind of a product?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question, and it just depends on how you look at it. If you've bought a bike, a mid-range or bike lately, you'll think a little different about that price tag. Of course, you can go to Walmart and buy a bike for $100, but you definitely get what you pay for. So some of our top competitors, their starting prices are around 5,000 and going up to like 15,000. So as much as a car in my mind. So, and this is like a balancing act. This is a hard game, because as soon as we have a product that's priced lower, if we really worked hard to try to lower the cost of our bikes and put different componentry on there, and which could still be a really great bike, but it starts to cheapen our brand, and the perception in someone's mind is like, oh, that's a low priced bike, it must not be good quality. I was at Costco the other day, and they had some e-bikes for sale there, and I was blown away. The quality was amazing, and it had a buffet motor on there. It had Shimano componentry. I mean, it was just amazing, and the price was really low. But in the same moment, I know that people are looking at that bike and thinking, "Oh, that's cheap. That's got to be a really cheap e-bike." And because I go to a bike shop and I'm paying double that, for something that I really want, but they're not. It's just I don't know if that's really answering your question, or if I'm kind of tying myself in circles here, but so there is a balance, and there's a game. We still are one of the best entry level it is a high-end bike, and it really I won't put anything together that isn't going to last, that we can't always find parts for. They're all name brands, they're big companies, especially with the e-bike, and anything that's specifically to our bike, we want the very best. You can always find another tire or another wheel or that's made by somebody else that's going to fit on our bike, but those parts that are specific to us, we want them to last. And I hate those calls from a customer when something isn't working or something isn't working the way they want it, or we try to avoid that. So
no, I think that yeah.
Question
no, I think that makes sense. No, I think pricing is, as you said, it's a balancing act. Like, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I think if the customer is willing to pay for it and it works, I think that's the best pricing. I mean, sometimes I hear where people increase the price, and that kind of increase the demand as well. So I think pricing is definitely something that there's no right answer to it. One thing that I wanted to ask about, and I think you also kind of briefly touched on that, is kind of the size of this product. It's a direct-to-consumer business, but of course, the bucket itself, it doesn't seem like it's kind of foldable, but so you have to keep the bucket as is. Does that create any challenges in terms of your warehousing, and especially, I mean, what is the weight, like overall weight of this
Yeah.
bicycle, and
Yeah.
how are you shipping it out?
So luckily that bucket, I designed the bucket, and it nests inside of itself like paper cups, so our storage is fine with the buckets. What's the biggest challenges have been shipping it. So there's no good way to ship that, no tight, easy way. Like if it was just a regular bike, you can turn the handlebars sideways, you can take the wheel off, and you can make it a pretty small box. But with that bucket, we can't do that. So what we decided years ago is that we were just going to do this white glove service because we were stuck paying these premiums. We put it in a box. It's like a refrigerator box, and the bike is completely built, assembled, tuned up, test ride. It just shows up. You got to unpackage it. You do have to put the front wheel on, but everything else is just completely ready to go. Everything's been adjusted. So, and then working with different, because we can't ship it FedEx or UPS. It has to be freight. So it's all LTL freight. So I've had years of negotiation with freight companies trying to get those prices down, because one little freight, and right now with e-bikes, has become a huge challenge because of some of the fires from uncertified lithium batteries. And I'm sure some certified, I can't say that, but everything I'm aware of, they've always been uncertified batteries that have gone up in flames, but that hurts everybody else. So we have to ship everything hazmat, even though it's this giant bike and it's only this battery that's considered hazmat, but we still have to ship it that way. So that's been the challenge. That's a big expense for us, is to ship the bike. We often say we run two companies. We run a bike shop where we're building bikes, and we have this other company that's almost just as big, building boxing and packaging. So what is really hard to keep stored is those boxes, because they're huge. It is like a giant refrigerator, and they're so big we can't store them put together, so they're flat sheets that we're always folding and cutting and stapling together. And it's quite a process to try to keep the weight down, try to keep the size down, and then keep the bike protected. We don't want any damage or anything, and trying to save every penny we can on the shipping, because it can just eat up we offer free shipping. So we're taking an average of all the shipping from, we're in the Rockies. So, we ship to California. It's a really great deal. We ship to back east, and we're paying a lot. So we average that out, and we eat it a lot of times, and we take advantage of it other times. But that's the biggest challenge, is shipping them and packaging them and staying on top of all those regulations and everything to ship our bikes around.
Wow, that's so interesting and challenging at the same time. Like, can you not ship the batteries separately as, like, the hazmat dangerous good kind of a
We
thing?
can. So shipping just a battery, I end up shipping it. It's around $100 for that small battery. So the savings that I get from not adding it to the bike are just totally outweighed. So we thought of that same thing. I mean, we go right there. So good. It's a good idea, but it doesn't work out.
So, I mean, it does sound like, even just the logistics part is a big operation. Like, what does your team look like right now?
So our team has always been small. We've been really lean. We're myself, my wife, who does all of our marketing. She doesn't come down to the shop or the office, but we have a full-time office manager, and then a full-time mechanic, and myself, and then we bring in part-time help as things get busy. We'll bring in part-time here as we're ramping up for Christmas, because Christmas is always a big time. Summer, spring going into summer is huge, and so we'll bring in part-time help to help us. But a lot of that comes from working with our assembler in Taiwan. So we have like 50 different factories that I work with in Taiwan to get all the parts needed for one bike.
Wow.
And so all those 50 components are getting sent to one central location, and they pre-assemble the bike. So they assemble it as much as they can and still fit it into a really small box. So that means the wheels aren't attached, but the wheels are built. You know, they're all laced with all the spokes and stuff. That's done in Taiwan. So working with them in Taiwan and trying to get them to do a premium assembly, which normally doesn't happen. Normally a bike shop gets a bike from Trek or Giant or whoever they're getting the bike from to their shop. They know that they're going to take it out of the box and they're going to completely rebuild that bike. They're going to have to adjust the brakes, adjust the shifting, check the bearings, check the fitting on everything. They're basically building it. And that's just become a mindset in the whole bike industry. And it has been forever since we've moved manufacturing over to Taiwan and China, that they're not doing any of those premium services. I mean, you would never buy a motorcycle from Honda and not have that motorcycle all assembled and ready to go, or a car, you know, from Toyota. It comes, it's ready. Maybe you got to break it in or whatever, but it's all adjusted. But in the bike industry, it's not. It's this total rebuild, which has always driven me crazy. And it's been a huge challenge, to the point of our assembler trying to explain to them what we wanted in Taiwan and them not understanding, you know, at all, that I want this premium done. We finally came to an agreement. I said, I'm renting a warehouse right next to yours, and I'm hiring people that are going to do the final tune-up. And then, so you'll have to deliver it to them in the box. They'll open up the box, they'll fix everything, and they'll put it back in the box. And then they can take it back to you. And it wasn't until I was serious about this that they would said, well, you know, we could probably just do that for you. You know, we could give you that service. I'm like, great. That's exactly what I want. I mean, charge me a premium. It's still cheaper than me having an extra mechanic that I've got to go through training and everything. So I've been through training with them in Taiwan. We told them exactly how we want it put together. I'm over there at least once a year. Well, except for COVID, we took a long break from traveling over there, but and then maybe more if we're doing some big model changes or introducing some new product. But and it's been years now, so we've built those relationships. It's a lot smoother and a lot easier now.
In terms of, I mean, to me, it seems like even though it's a difficult operation, like if there's 50 different items that need to become, come together for the one bike, because you're working in Taiwan or the Asian countries, I'm assuming like the parts themselves are not that expensive. Like the overall cost of the bike is not that huge, and I'm assuming that it has like great margins for you to work with.
There's great margins on some parts. So on some things, our accessories are amazing margins. That's where we make our biggest margins, are selling all the accessories. So we have a lot of accessories. When you break it down on the e-bike side, there's not great margins because there are so many e-bikes right now and everyone's just cutting into each other. So I think what has helped us is just having a bike that's so unique. I mean, it's got this big bucket on the back, and you could go buy a comparable bike without the bucket and pay a lot less. But we're just lucky we've got a really cool product, and that bucket adds a lot of value on there. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but the margins are great when we're selling direct to customer. Okay. When we're selling to a shop, the shop is who takes the big margins. The manufacturer is supposed to make their money off of volume, which I don't think we'll ever be in that position, just because it's such a boutique product. It's such a not mainstream bicycle. So now going direct to the consumer, it makes it a lot easier to stay in business.
I want to talk about your marketing. You said your wife kind of handles that part, and when you started out, it was much easier to be present in different social feeds and things like that. How has your marketing changed? And what kind of marketing you're doing right now to kind of get new customer acquisition, and what's really working well, what's not working?
That's a it's so easy to tell you what used to work. It's so much harder. We feel like we're floundering with all the changes with social media and the discredibility of influencers, because that was really huge for us, but they just do not hold the same clout as they used to. And everyone's trying to charge money. The algorithms on Instagram and Facebook, they don't serve up. We have a lot of followers on our account, but they may not see our posts every time. So what's working for us right now, and this is a hard question to answer, because the last 2 years actually have been the first 2 years that we haven't seen growth in our business, and we're struggling in that area. I'm just being honest with you that we're not like go out of business struggling, but I'm actually down a mechanic and I haven't hired one. Christmas is coming soon, and I'm just putting in a lot of extra hours trying to fill that position. So, definitely feeling that entrepreneur pain that can be there. But what's still working though, and it has always worked and is completely carrying us right now, is that community. So they're not big influencers, but they're just regular people that are using the bike. So people out on the bike, sells the bike. We get these hot spots, these zip codes that we just continue to sell to, the same zip code, the same school. We find out because they'll send us photos of like 7 Madsen bikes all in a row picking up their kids from the same kindergarten, and they drove each other, right? Maybe there was 1 or 2 that had a bike and showed up at kindergarten, but all those other sales came because they saw them. And so that's always been there. But after 14 years my wife just showed me a post that somebody sent to us, and they got hold of one of our bikes from the original first Madsen. I'm almost embarrassed that they're on the road. I mean, they're still a great bike, but it's changed so much. But he just was raving about him and his daughter. They picked it up for like $100 and put another $100 of parts, and they're riding it all around. And they've drawn pictures all over the bucket, and I love that. I mean, that's a 14-year-old Madsen, but it's out there selling bikes. It's still, our name is on the side of there, and it's easy to find online. So I think that's really what's carrying us through these really lean times until we can figure things out, or until the economy flips again. Or we also have more competitors than we've ever had before. In the US, which is great. That means more people are on bikes, but I don't know what's causing this little slump that we've had the last 2 years. But
I mean, I think I think your product, because it's targeted to such kind of, if you can tie in a great story with your product, this idea of getting out in nature and spending time with your family and things like that. I think I think creating awareness around that story maybe can help drive, because I think because it's kind of a unique product, the big challenge is probably awareness. Like when somebody sees this item and they are into this idea of spending time with their family or going out biking and things like that, it will make a complete sense to them. Like they will be attracted to it. But unless right. They're aware that such a product exists, like they would not even know. So I think building more awareness through to kind of your target segment through more of a storytelling. I mean, are you doing any of those kind of things right now?
Right. Yeah, we do a lot. I mean, we do a lot of that with this smaller community right now. We just launched a program. I don't know how. It's probably like 6 months ago, where we've made these badges, these literal metal badges that I don't know if you remember, like the old Mercedes would have like the 1,000 mile club and the 10,000 mile club, and they would get a badge and they could put it on their bumper. Anyway, it was kind of a twist off of that. So we've made a bunch of these badges, and we have these contests or these challenges that if you ride your bike every day for a month, and show us some pictures of you doing it, we send out these badges. That badge goes right onto the front wooden crate that's on the bike, and it's been a ton of fun. So I think there's like 6 of them out there right now, and people are right now, what's the badge that everyone's earning is this costume bike. So it's decorating, and people have done it for years, is decorate their bikes for Halloween. So they decorate the bikes, they ride the kids around, and they send us a photo. We give them this badge, and it's kind of this little bragging thing that they get to show, you know, online. They'll take a picture. Oh, I just got my, you know, my 1,000 mile. When they hit 1,000 miles, they get a badge. When they hit 5,000 miles, they get a badge. And that's, I mean, it's totally on the grassroots. Our customers have maybe 200 followers, but they're real. They're 200 real followers that actually know them and know their kids. And I think, I mean, it's way more real for us also, just because we know those customers, and it's a much more fun way to be marketing. It's a much more fun way to be in business. Maybe we're not on a path to become this big giant of a bike company, nor do we know if we want to. I mean, I would be happy if we did, for sure. I mean, someday I gotta retire and look at an exit strategy, but until then, we'll just keep going the way that we're going. Maybe something new will come out. We've been playing with TikTok lately, which we used to think that was so irrelevant to our customers, but now those little kids are now our customers. You know, those people playing on TikTok, they're not little kids anymore. They're moms and dads all of a sudden. So maybe we should have jumped on that sooner when people told us that's where we need to be. But there's a new platform all the time, and we don't always have the bandwidth to jump on.
Yeah. In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes made, lessons learned, failures. I know you shared a few of them, but has there been any big mistake or failure recently that you kind of think you could have avoided, or, you know, what did you learn from any big mistake?
I mean, I briefly talked about how we started manufacturing in China, and it would probably be the largest mistake that if I could go back and change, it would be not going down there. But it's not as recent. But I would say recently, what a lesson that was really learned is during COVID, we, like every bike shop, just had the most phenomenal year ever. We sold more bikes than we ever had. We were lucky because we were opening up Europe, Denmark. I had a container of bikes ready to go to Denmark when COVID hit. We couldn't get bikes. We couldn't get parts. We couldn't get anything because everyone's shut down and everybody else is selling bikes. So everyone's placing orders all at the same time. What normally took me 3 months to get, I was getting people telling me that I had to wait 400 days to get some of the parts that we normally got quick. So, but because we were about to open up Denmark, we decided to put that on hold and brought that container to the US. So that helped, that like saved our inventory, and we sold it all. And we started to see that, oh, we're going to sell all these bikes. Let's keep the prices high. Let's like slow down our marketing. Let's slow down. We can save all this money. You know, we don't have to, people are buying the bikes anyway. And we really pushed our momentum, like stopped it. We slammed the brakes on because we could see we're going to run out of bikes. And we did. We sold everything. And we had this lull that we just let stay a lull. And that was a big mistake. I wish we would have continued all of our momentum and just let people see that they're back ordered or whatever, but still continue. We just really took a break and a big breather and didn't realize it until we got product again and tried to ramp up and realized, oh my gosh, this is really hard to ramp back up. And that's even with things weren't as smooth with, you know, the new algorithms and stuff, but we still had the momentum going. And so it was a good lesson to learn, and one that I wish I didn't have to learn, because it was a big mistake that we stopped. You know, we could have still, all of our social, all of our community, we could have been feeding that still. We could have been riding high. In fact, we could have probably done it better than we ever did before, because we had more cash than we ever had before by selling so many bikes so quick and, you know, at full retail. And I think it was maybe a little tempting just to take a break, but well, there's a recent challenge that we failed at.
Yeah, that's very it's almost like, you know, when something is working, you have to take advantage, because a lot of the times it's like, you know, the right time and the right opportunities and everything coming together, that's like there's sometimes a luck component to that also, and so it's like if you try to recreate that in the future, that may never happen. So yeah, I think that's a great advice. I know we are at time. I want to quickly do rapid fire segment. Do you have 5 more minutes? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll do a quick rapid fire segment. In this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, and you have to answer them maybe in a couple of words or a sentence or so. The first one is one book recommendation for entrepreneurs and why?
Oh, I love, let's see what's, Brains on Fire. It's a marketing book. It's a marketing firm. I just really love it. It really is that base roots, getting your customers to do your marketing for you. It's well written. I love it. For anyone that's going to go to China, and do any kind of work, or anywhere in Asia, I would recommend Poorly Made in China is the name of the book. And I wish I would have read that before I ever set foot over there, because it's such an eye opener to read that. So,
well,
got 2 for 1.
No, that's awesome. An innovative product or idea in e-commerce, retail, or technology that you feel excited about?
Let's see.
Any other product or idea
that may not be a question for me, but lately I've actually been amazed by, and this may not sound great, but Alibaba, they have exploded, and they have made manufacturing over in China so easy. It is like a light year jump to anyone that wants to come up with any product anywhere. If they learn to navigate a little bit on Alibaba, maybe read that book, Poorly Made in China. But Alibaba also takes away a lot of those challenges. It's amazing what they're doing. And I know they are growing exponentially, and it's a huge company, and there's some things with their company that are problematic and not the best practices, but every time I'm on there, it blows me away. So for good or bad, I would say Alibaba.
Awesome. A business or productivity tool or software, or a productivity tip?
I'm really old school and analog, so my only tip is just to make sure that you record what you have. For me, it's a little book that I literally write in, so I can go back and look at that. Or I know there's all kinds of software. My wife uses a lot of other software, and she's always trying to get me to do it. But I am old school, but it works for me. So that's a little field notes notepad. It's my technology.
Cool. A peer entrepreneur or business person whom you look up to, or someone who inspires you?
Oh, I have a few great mentors from young teenage years that I've leaned on, and then recently some of the entrepreneurs that I look up to are their family members. So I have a brother-in-law that's in a band and is building retro style keyboards, and a sister-in-law that's an artist, a painter, and they're entrepreneur. You don't think of them as being entrepreneurs, but they are killing it in both those industries, and 2 industries that you think are like art and that can't grow the way they're growing. They're doing an amazing job. So I'll say those.
Awesome. Final question: best business advice that you have ever received, or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
I had a good answer for that question, and now I can't see best advice. I don't know. I can't think of a. Maybe it just don't always listen to what people say. If you believe it's something if it's your passion, if it's what you want, you can make it. You can make it work. The other advice is that coming up with the idea is the easy part. So often people think that, if I got this idea, I'm set. But that is the easiest part. It's the marketing, it's the getting the product out there, it's delivering all these other things. Those are the hard things. Selling the product is the hardest part, not coming up with the idea.
That is a great advice, and that's very, very true. Well, Jared, those were all the questions that I had. Really appreciate you sharing your story and sharing some of your lessons learned as well as successes. So yeah, thank you again. If anybody wants to check out your bikes, what's the best way to do that?
If they Google Bucket Bike or Madsen Cycles or Madsen Bike, we got a pretty good presence, but it's madsencycles.com, but Bucket Bike's the best way to find us. Easy to remember.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you again for joining me today at TrepTalks.
Yeah, thank you. It was a fun conversation.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.